Harry's Wife, Part 104.25. Why are the children never seen? Hello, I'm H.G. Tudor. It is recorded that Prince Harry and Harry's wife have two children, Archie and Lilibet. However, these two children are very rarely seen. If you contrast that with the children in the Waleses household, it's not like they're plastered across the newspapers and magazines and digital media every day of the week, but they are regularly and repeatedly seen. Charlotte, of course, and George seen at the funeral recently of the late Queen Elizabeth II, but Loose Cannon Louis had to stay at home. They've been seen at the Trooping of the Colour. They were there at the service of Thanksgiving. They have been appearing on the balcony. And we've seen other pictures, first day at school, and various family portraits at Christmas and on the beach, and so on and so forth. There are other members of the royal family who with their young children are shown. We see it with some famous people that regularly show them having a pleasant family outing. Not plastering their children left, right and centre, but they're seen regularly at sort of different stages of life. There are, of course, some famous people that utilise their children and do indeed plaster them everywhere, roping them into social media pictures, even if they perhaps don't even want to, plastering them throughout the print media, glossy photographs, regularly providing updates and bulletins, triangulating people with their children. But when it comes to Harry and his wife, Harry's wife, very little has been seen of the children. We, of course, saw the early christening photographs of Archie. Many people suggesting it was a doll. Then there was Harry's wife going for a walk in Canada with what many people have also suggested was a doll and being carried in a rather strange fashion in a harness as she walked the dogs and stared down the lens of the camera. There was the Christmas photograph, which many people claim was photoshopped, that showed the four of them together. And there may have been one or two other pictures of showing Archie, I think, in the garden, at their home, and possibly down at the beach. As for Lilibet, even less appearances from her. There was the appearance on the Christmas card, as mentioned, and also, of course, recently the picture that was shown in the garden. Again, plastered throughout social media, there has been repeated speculation that the children don't exactly exist, and therefore that either dolls or substitute children have been utilised, actors in effect, to play the role of the two children. Now, certainly, to address the question, why are the children never seen, an answer of, well, they don't exist, would tie it up rather neatly, wouldn't it? You don't see them because they don't exist, and on the few occasions that they have been seen, it was either dolls or actors being used, and that's not something that can be done all of the time. So that would neatly explain that they don't exist. So that is one option that is available. Now, of course, is that something that could happen? Would a narcissist portray themselves as being a parent when no children actually exist? Now, I've dealt with this in parts passive in detail. The short answer is, yes, it can happen. Has it happened here? Well, that's something for you to make your own minds up about. I'm not here to pour through all of the evidence one way or the other. There are other people that have done so, and you can make your own mind up by watching their videos, reading their blog articles, etc. I'm here to talk about if they don't exist, would a narcissist engage in that behaviour? The short answer is a narcissist could well do so, which would lend some support to the theory that has been advanced. But we consider all options here in order to give you all permutations when it comes to understanding more about narcissism. So, having decided, or rather having considered the option that the reason one doesn't see much of them is that they don't exist, and that is something that a narcissist could well do, let's consider the other options. Well, of course, that revolves around the children do exist. So if they do exist, either they are the children that Harry's wife carried, or, as some suspect, they're Harry's children born of a surrogate, why then is it that the children are rarely seen? Well, an obvious answer would be they're simply protecting them from the glare of publicity, in the way that many other famous people never show their children at all. Their existence is acknowledged, but they don't appear in photographs. They are not seen with the parents, and of course there are various laws that prevent publication of photographs involving those children if consent has not been given. Then those famous and well-known individuals ensure that in order to protect their children from that glare of publicity, their children are never seen. They exist, but they're never seen. So could it be that a narcissist would engage in such behaviour? Again, the answer to that is yes. A narcissist born of cognitive empathy and facade management may well have children, but never show them, because it serves the purpose to portray cognitive empathy towards those children and to manage a facade to the outside world of, I very much care about my children and that's why I'm not subjecting them to the glare of publicity. Understand, of course, because it's a narcissist, and the narcissist doesn't actually love those children because the narcissist is incapable of love and is incapable of emotional empathy. Just certain narcissists believe that they do, and with a mid-range narcissist such as Harry's wife, she could well be led by her narcissism to believe that she does care about these children, and therefore it's appropriate to keep them hidden for the purposes of the flexing of her cognitive empathy, which allows a form of control to be asserted over them, of course, by ensuring that they're not exposed elsewhere, and also, of course, keeping them away largely from their extended family, particularly on the Markle side. What about the fact of facade management? Well, again, the narcissism determines that that would be useful to say to everybody else, look, I do care about these children and I'm a decent person. So it's entirely conceivable that the reason that the children aren't seen is they do exist, but Harry's wife's narcissism operates to shield them from the outside world in order to control those children, in order to control the outside world, utilizing cognitive empathy, and it helps manage the facade. It might be that they're not seen because although they do exist, they're rarely with the couple. And by that, that's lending credence to the suggestion that the children might actually be with surrogates, and therefore only occasionally are they wheeled out for periodic photographs and appearances, perhaps on the cover of something, but largely are unseen because the children just aren't physically at the mansion in Monte Shitshow. Again, whether that's true or not, one does not know. One would have to examine the evidence and make a determination. And as I mentioned earlier, that isn't the purpose of my role. My role is to consider all the options and determine, is this something that a narcissist could do? Again, could a narcissist have children which are with a surrogate and wheel them out occasionally? Short answer, absolutely. Again, why would this happen? Well, first of all, it would mean that the children don't have to be controlled that often because they're elsewhere. It would also mean that the narcissist is free to come and do what they want without the hindrance that children cause. Furthermore, it would also mean that the facade could be managed suitably by saying, we have children, we care for them, but we're keeping them free from the glare of publicity, although actually they're not here, and periodically providing a glimpse for the purpose of triangulation. So it could be, and it's something that's entirely possible with a narcissist, that the children don't actually live there, and they exist, but they're elsewhere. Another option could be that the children do exist, and they're not brought forward, not because it's protecting them from the glare of publicity, but quite simply, Harry's wife isn't that bothered about them, and prefers for them to be taken care of by nannies, and will pay lip service talking about, oh, I play with them, and Archie does this, and Lilibet does that. But because of the absence of emotional empathy and the fact that children, as I'm led to believe, I don't have any myself, they take up a lot of time, energy, and effort. And narcissists are selfish creatures. And as a consequence of that, it means that the narcissist, in order to pursue the prime aims, doesn't want to be hindered by having to deal with a crotch goblin all of the time. And therefore, whilst the children may well exist, it's far easier to palm them off, either on Harry, perhaps explaining why he's not seen as much, and on nannies and other helpers, which allows Harry's wife to floozy around in gardens, having pictures taken of her as if she was 18 years old, going off and making boring speeches and spending days, if not weeks at a time, away from the children overseas. Quite simply, the absence of emotional empathy means she's not bothered about them. Cognitive empathy causes her to talk about them, but as you know, it's always easy. Talk is cheap when it comes to the narcissist, and particularly with regard to talking about the children. Furthermore, not having any actual responsibility and engaging in parental abrogation of responsibilities and duties is a lack of accountability, commonly seen with narcissists, and in the circumstances frees the narcissist to pursue what would be seen as more rewarding pursuits vis-à-vis the prime aims, i.e. jetting around, turning up at events, so on and so forth. Again, is that something that a narcissist might engage in? Absolutely it is the case. That a narcissist with no emotional empathy, that sense of entitlement and lack of accountability, is really not that bothered and wheels the children out because it looks good, but the rest of the time everybody else can do the hard yards and the heavy lifting in relation to them. A final option that exists is that the children are being hidden, not to keep them away from the glare of publicity, not because they're actually living somewhere else, and not because she's not particularly bothered about them, but quite simply to maintain interest in what they're doing and what they look like for merching opportunities. Would a narcissist do this? Again, absolutely. Having no emotional empathy for the little mirrors that are the children, that are just simply appliances in the narcissist fuel matrix, it's entirely conceivable that a narcissist would see the children as nothing more than appliances to be used for merching opportunities to sell in terms of photographs, interviews, television programs, and so forth. And therefore, in order to keep that interest high and thus maximize the return on them, they are kept hidden from view to avoid overexposure and diminution of value. Naturally, many people would think that this is a reprehensible way to treat one's offspring. But we regularly see it with narcissists. Some narcissists cart their children around everywhere, showing them off, dressing them up inappropriately, making them pursue career paths which are in accordance with what that narcissist wants, and I'm talking about famous ones, all for the purpose of the image of the parental narcissist. But it can go the other way, whereby a narcissist keeps them hidden in the early years to maintain interest, to keep up the mystery that surrounds them, to build up value in their stock, which can be leveraged at a later juncture. Accordingly, you will have your own views as to why the children are not seen. But what I've done is set out for you the ways in which a narcissist behaves, which explains why the children are never seen. And as you have heard, there are a multiplicity of applicable options, all revolving around the nature of the narcissistic dynamic. And that's why it's so useful for you to understand narcissism through my work, because it then enables you to look at patterns of behaviours and get explanations for them. It can allow you to consider why certain things have and have not happened, and be able to apply the information that you have gathered from me to reach decisions based upon evidence and the pattern of behaviours of the narcissist. It unlocks the information for you because you know, for instance, the narcissist does this, does not do this, does not have emotional empathy, acts with a sense of entitlement, is manipulative, needs to control, needs to draw fuel, etc. And all of those behaviours and requirements lend themselves to particular outcomes vis-à-vis certain scenarios, such as, why do you not see the children often? I'm H.G. Tudor. Thank you for listening.